As political parties weaponize fake news, WhatsApp says it will bring its verification model used in the Mexican elections to India ahead of the big 2019 polls. Dubbed Lahu Ka Lagan, the prohibitive 12% GST on sanitary napkins is finally done away with. And we are living in a new geological age, the Meghalayan. Why has this new chapter in Earth's history been named after India's northeastern state? It's Monday, July 23rd. In 2017, Prime Minister Modi reportedly told his MPs that the 2019 general election will be fought on social media. The Prime Minister, many believe, was not overstating the case. The dramatic increase in internet penetration via smartphones and 4G and cheap availability of data packs has meant leveraging social media will now be key for political parties. That comes with a big downside for us, the citizen. It's been called the paradox of the information age. We have so much information available, yet we're not better informed. And there is, unarguably, a sophisticated disinformation campaign machinery active in India. WhatsApp, which has 200 million users here, has reportedly met with the Election Commission as part of its efforts to stop misuse of its platform and will bring its fake news verification model called Verificado that it used recently in the Mexican general elections to India. The extent of social media manipulation in Mexico, as Reuters says, showed how the playbook for information warfare has evolved since the 2016 US presidential election. What is Verificado? Launched months before the Mexican election, Verificado is a fact-checking initiative across multiple social media platforms, including WhatsApp. Verificado is a collaborative effort with more than 90 separate organizations, including publishers, media groups, NGOs, and universities, as also social media giants Facebook and Google, to help monitor the election. A WhatsApp line was created to which users could send stories or information they suspect to be false and have them verified. Verificado fact-checked the authenticity and responded to individual users. This included images and videos. A similar initiative called Comprova is underway in Brazil, with 24 media outlets across TV, print, radio, and online fact-checking rumors, fabricated content, and manipulation techniques ahead of the October election. This study by Samantha Bradshaw, a researcher with Oxford University Computational Propaganda Project, who tracks bots which attempt to manipulate public opinion by boosting the popularity of social media posts, helps understand the global trends in the organized and coordinated use of social media for manipulating public opinion. The report concludes there are significant social media manipulation programs in the 28 countries analyzed here. Let's look at some examples. The study says in Mexico, journalists are frequently targeted and harassed over social media by government-sponsored cyber troops. In India, citizens are actively recruited by cyber troop teams in order to help propagate political ideologies and messages. Since these citizens are not officially affiliated with the government or a political party, their so-called independent voice can be used to help disseminate messages from a seemingly neutral perspective. What are the ways in which cyber troops or trolls are employed? Saudi Arabia, for example, engages in hashtag poisoning, where cyber troops spam trending hashtags to disrupt criticism or other unwanted conversations through a flood of unrelated tweets. China allegedly employs the 50-cent party, so-called because of a rumor that government-sponsored internet commentators were paid 50 cents every time they posted messages online. China's approach has been to overwhelm the population with positive news, what researchers call cheerleading content, aimed at eclipsing bad news and diverting attention from actual problems. In South Korea, employees from the National Intelligence Service launched a series of smear campaigns against South Korean opposition parties in the lead-up to the 2012 presidential election. Very often, individual targeting is used to silence political dissent online. It is also one of the most dangerous forms of cyber troop activity, as individuals often receive real-life threats and suffer reputational damage. Sounds familiar? In Russia, cyber troops have been known to target journalists and political dissidents. The Kremlin-aligned Nazi youth movement sent around a list of human rights activists, declaring them the most vile of enemies. Sounds familiar? In Azerbaijan, individuals are frequently targeted on Twitter and other social media platforms if they criticize the government. Watch this space for more. After a year of petitioning authorities, protests, and social media campaigns, the GST Council has finally exempt sanitary napkins from the ambit of the goods and services tax. The new GST regime had imposed a prohibitive 12% tax on sanitary pads, thanks to sanitary pads, an essential for menstrual hygiene, being bracketed as a luxury good or item. To underscore the point, according to this report by philanthropy foundation Dasra, 23% of adolescent girls drop out of school every year when they start menstruating. Similar figures are available for sub-Saharan Africa. In India, 88% of menstruating women use homegrown alternatives such as old fabric, rags, sand, ash, wood shavings, newspapers, dried leaves, hay, and plastic. Only an estimated 12% women use or have access to sanitary napkins. High taxes have put sanitary napkins beyond the reach of millions of women. Under criticism for categorizing a healthcare essential as a luxury item, the government had last year claimed that the tax incidence on this item before and after GST is the same or less, and that major raw materials used for sanitary napkins attract between 12 and 18% tax, and therefore the final product cannot be taxed lower or be exempt. This Economic Times article called the government out on its claims, pointing out that sanitary napkins before the GST regime was in fact taxed at 6% across India. VAT was applicable only in a handful of states. And that GST rates of raw materials that have increased make up only 20% of the costs. And 80% of the total cost of a sanitary napkin is cotton, which is taxed at only 5% under GST. While in this case, taxation was the instrument of discrimination, corporates continue to charge women more for essentially the same product men are using. Have you heard of pink tax? Discriminatory pricing has come to be known as pink tax. From razor blades to deodorants that have the same active ingredients, the product for men costs less than the one for women. Here's another statistic to chew on. The World Economic Forum Gender Gap Report 2017 finds that globally, despite the many initiatives that forced salary disclosures, the pay gap is widening. The average pay for women in 2017 was $12,000 compared to the $21,000 for men. We are living in the Meghalayan Age. What's that? The 4.6 billion year existence of Earth is divided by geologists into smaller and distinct units. The International Chronostratigraphic Chart shows the timeline for Earth's history. The geological timescale includes eons, eras, periods, epochs, and ages. Each unit corresponds to significant occurrences like the breakup of continents or dramatic shifts in climate. We are currently in the Holocene epoch, which covers the past 11,700 years, which followed the end of the last ice age when temperatures soared. Now, the International Commission on Stratigraphy proposed 3 stages be introduced to denote the epoch's upper, middle, and lower phases. As per the IUGS, to determine the beginning time for each age, scientists looked at the unique chemical signatures found in rock samples from that time. Each signature relates to a big climatic event. Now, the Greenlandian, the oldest age of the Holocene, began 11,700 years ago as the Earth left the last ice age. The North Cripian, or the Middle Holocene, began 8,300 years ago when Earth abruptly began cooling. The BBC says this is likely because vast amounts of fresh water that came from Canada's melting glaciers poured into the North Atlantic and disrupted ocean currents. The Meghalayan Age started when a mega drought devastated civilizations across the world, including those in Egypt, Greece, Syria, Palestine, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and the Yangtze River Valley. The Meghalayan Age began 4,200 years ago and continues to the present. Why Meghalaya? This age began at the time when agricultural societies around the world experienced an abrupt and critical mega drought and cooling. The evidence was found in the state of Meghalaya. Geologists chose the name Meghalayan after a rock sample they analyzed from Meghalaya. The Maunglu cave in Meghalaya is located at an elevation of 1,290 meters and is among the top 10 longest and deepest caves in India. The stalagmite collected from here has shown that the conditions in the cave were suitable for preserving chemical signs of the transition in ages. And finally, the recalibration of ATMs to dispense the new 200 rupee note was just about wrapping up when the RBI announced the launch of a new series of 100 rupee denomination notes. This lavender-colored 100 rupee note is smaller than the existing 100 rupee notes in circulation. This process, the ATM operations industry says, will cost 100 crore rupees. The director of the Confederation of ATM Industry says this means that all 237,000 ATMs in the country would again have to be recalibrated. This entails a massive effort which is both time-consuming and adds to our costs. Plus, the coexistence of both the new and the older versions of 100 rupee notes poses a challenge. The continuity of old notes, introduction of new notes through the ATM channel, and their availability will determine whether to recalibrate or not. Well, looks like ATM woes will continue for at least as long as this line. Have yourself a good Monday.